add a side of fries or some potato chips, and you've got a beautiful... It is Sloppy Joe's. All right, this meal comes together usually in under 30 minutes, and it's, again, if you have the family help, it's a great way to spend time putting a meal together and sitting down and sharing parts of your day. So get cooking. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Sacred Nourishment. I'm Mille Prebel, your host for the series, and I'm back here at the beautiful Trilogy Retreat Center in their beautiful gourmet kitchen to bring you another plant-based meal for Lent. I've partnered with Faith in Real Life to bring you plant-based meals for Lent to help you on your journey of having meatless Fridays and with a little bit more pizzazz and flair, great tasting recipes. Today, we're going to be making Sloppy Joe's and a little bit of coleslaw. So I wanted to go ahead and start with the coleslaw because we want to get the coleslaw into the seasonings to have them sort of marinate and marry together all the great flavors in the fridge while we get the Sloppy Joe's ready. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with the coleslaw, and I'll get chopping. I love using purple cabbage for its beautiful coloring, and it's also a great way to eat the rainbow, as they say. A lot of the best plant-based meals have a variety of different types of plants and colors and things that we can incorporate into our meal. So I'm also going to use a bag salad. This is a sweet kale chopped salad just to make things a little bit faster. So those are all diced up as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and mix together my dressing. The dressing is a combination of a 1/4 cup of vegan mayonnaise. So I'm going to go ahead and incorporate that in. They have vegan mayonnaise in the store. Usually some of the plant-based ones are in the refrigerated section. Hellmann's actually has a plant-based vegan mayonnaise as well, which is actually what this one is. So I'm using that. I'm also using 1 tablespoon of maple syrup and a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. So that's going to go ahead and go in. And then my spice for this is a 1/2 teaspoon of celery salt, or if you don't have celery salt, you can use a 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1/8 teaspoon of celery seeds. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and take a pair of tongs, and I'm going to go ahead and incorporate all this into my chopped cabbages. So it's got a beautiful coloring. And this we're going to let marinate in the fridge for a while we prepare our Sloppy Joe's, and they're going to go on top of our sandwiches. Love me some coleslaw. All right. One of the most beautiful things that I was able to do with my garden this summer was take my grandson, and it was a great time for us to spend some time together, and it was a great time for me to share about God's creation with him and just about the beauty of his earth and the amazing things about, the fact that we plant seeds, but God does the growing. And there were certain things like we grew potatoes, and of course the potatoes develop underground. And I would tell him, just because we don't see the potatoes doesn't mean, that God's not working on it underground, So we always have to remember that God is always in the mix. He's always working, even if it's out of sight, it's not out of mind. We've got our coleslaw. chilling in the fridge. So it's time to get started on our lentils. I'm going to take 1/2 cup of brown, or you can use green lentils. And I'm also going to use 1/4 cup of farro. This is an Italian grain. It's very high in protein, so I like to add it to some of the plant-based meals. I'm also going to add 1 cup of vegetable broth. So especially when I'm doing grains, I like to use vegetable broth when I'm cooking because it just adds an extra flavor. So we're going to go ahead and bring that to a boil. The farro and the lentils both take 20 minutes. So we're going to go ahead, bring that to a boil, and then let those simmer while we get the rest of our ingredients ready. The second Sunday of Lent, our gospel is the Transfiguration. It is a familiar passage that is actually said several times during the year. But in this Easter sequence, it invites us to go deeper. You know, they go up to on the mountain with Jesus, and they see, you know, he's transfigured. They see who he really is. And Peter wants to stay. He's like, let's build tents. You know, we're good. Let's just hang out. And Jesus says, no. You know, we've got to go back down, you know, into the world. So it's a good reminder for us that we can have these amazing prayer experiences, and we can be around, you know, other believers and have, you know, this wonderful kumbaya moment. But we have to go back into the real world and live our faith in the real world. So it's just a great reminder. God truly wants us to transfigure into our best selves. And I think through these scriptures over and over, he is revealing to us how we can become our best selves. We're going to use 1/2 cup of diced onion. And you're going to want to dice your onion in relatively small pieces because, again, we're going to be imitating a little bit of a sloppy Joe texture. Next, we're going to dice up 1 carrot. These carrots were kind of small, so I'm going to do 2. And again, you want to make them small enough because they're going to sort of be in a sloppy Joe. So you don't want huge chunks. You want nice small pieces. A lot of times people have the different choppers you can use too, but I find that doing chopping by hand for me is very therapeutic, and it's a way that I really put love into all the meals that I'm preparing by just taking that time. Recipe calls for 1 red pepper. Again, you want to have it diced relatively small. This is a good dish that you can have a couple different prep areas going on. If you want to get the family involved, you can have some cutting the onions and some cutting the carrots and some cutting the peppers. So it definitely cuts down on the prep time when you have many hands in the kitchen. And it's a great way to spend quality time together as a family. I know growing up in an Italian family, my mom and my grandmother and the girls, we seemed to always be in the kitchen. So it was a great time that we shared a lot of tradition and love until the meatballs started on fire that one day, but that's another story. Don't leave unattended fried meatballs. I think it's never too early to get your kids into the kitchen helping prepare meals. And I think it also is a way of instilling, good habits, ways that they can have healthy habits of nourishing themselves, not being intimidated by cooking from scratch. You can look up different recipes or things that you'd like to try, and everybody can bring a meal of interest and help prepare it. When I first started cooking plant-based, I was a stickler about the details and the ingredients and following everything to the letter, and that's all well and good. And especially when you're starting out anything, what the saying is, you have to know the rules to break the rules. But don't be intimidated if there's something that you can't find or something that you don't have on hand. I love to Google, what a substitute for something is, and usually you'll have something pretty close in your kitchen. But don't, let the fact that you don't have one ingredient prevent you from making a wonderful plant-based meal. We're going to be sauteing our vegetables next. So again, I'm going to be using a tablespoon of broth with a tablespoon of olive oil. Again, just to cut down on the amount of fat. I'm going to heat that up. I measured out some of my dry spices, and right now I'm measuring out some of my wet spices, maple syrup and Dijon mustard, and I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. We're going to start sauteing our onion. Turn that up a little bit. I like to give the onions just a little bit of a head start before I add the other vegetables. I'm going to add my carrots and my red onion. I'm going to turn down to about a medium, and I'm going to go ahead and saute these until they soften up. So this week, I ask you to think about how God's trying to transfigure your life. And can you open your heart to his plan? The theme of this week is God's transformation in us. The lentils and farro are just about finished. So we're going to be adding the spices. I have, in this spice mix, I have 2 teaspoons of paprika and a teaspoon of garlic powder. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my vegetables. I'm going to add a can of diced tomatoes. And I want to go ahead and let those cook down for a little bit. Starting to look sloppy Joe-ish. These are the fire roasted tomatoes. If you find they're a little bit too big, I always just take a pair of kitchen scissors and you can kind of cut them up in the pan. It gives them a little bit of a better size. So I'm going to add my tomato paste and my Dijon mustard and my apple cider vinegar. Starting to smell like sloppy joes in here. I think one of the misnomers about eating a plant-based meal is that you won't be as fully satiated or feel as full as you would from a regular meal. And I really feel that couldn't be further from the truth. The lentils that I'm going to add to this dish are very hearty and very rich, and the farro is also very rich. So you're going to get just as much satiation and nourishment, and I mean, you actually can get even a heavy feeling with this dish in particular. There's a lot of ways to incorporate beans and grains and different rices, so those will give you the, first of all, the proteins that you need and the calorie density that you're looking for to stay full. So I'm going to go ahead and add the beans and the farro. They are finished. Yeah, I think people have a kind of a, they think that, you know, plant-based meals are salads and celery sticks and orange slices. But there, you know, plant-based cooking has come so far over the years. So I'm going to let this cook down for another few minutes. And I'm going to check on our coleslaw and put it together, and we'll be back. It's important to give a little bit of a taste test before you plate up your meals, just to make sure that the seasonings are on point. I'm going to add just a dash more salt. It is Sloppy Joes for dinner. Add a side of fries or some chips, and you've got a great plant-based meal for a Friday night that brought your family together this Lent.
This is not a prayer tactic you can just imagine. You gotta say it first before it can happen. Hopefully graces will fall from the sky, answering all the questions that